past is a funny thing. Places change, people move on, and memories fade. Our recollections are a string of moments, and we try to fill in the blanks. In the end, you're left more with a feeling or an idea of what was, with the recollection of discrete moments. You can't hold on to time, but maybe you can take comfort in the journey and the experiences you've had along the way. My expectation heading back to Brooklyn and revisiting the places of my youth was that it would be an opportunity to provide context and comfort to me for a life well lived. Physically going to the places clearly wasn't necessary to reflect on how far I've come on this journey of life. However, as I was writing this, days before arriving, I wondered what I would feel. Possibly I would feel sadness for all the change, for people that had come and gone, for family that had passed on, or a general sense of loss for those bygone days. Would regrets enter my thoughts? Would I simply reminisce and reimagine things, painting a more colorful and grander picture of what was? Possibly nostalgic reflections would lead to feelings of contentment and gratitude for having moved through that time and space. After all, we are shaped by our past experiences. Yet at the same time, we strive not to allow our past to have a hold on us. No regrets. I think it's important to let go of your past, not hold on to it, but accept your personal history. Maybe that's the thing, another life lesson. What I did know was that I was excited to see all that had changed and to feel the emotions that would be triggered by being there. Well, the next journey began. It was a new journey that marked a point in time, signifying what was before and what would come next. As I mentioned before, I embarked on the 50 at 50 journey. It was important to punctuate life with new experiences and adventure. I was very excited to kick off this new experience, and I knew in a few days I'd hit a groove, a rhythm, where I would be in the flow. I would like to say that I carried the 50 at 50 bliss into my day-to-day life when I returned home. Of course, that experience changed me in ways I was still figuring out. It was an incredible adventure, and it was an enriching experience. It had a tremendous positive impact on who I am, and it truly enriched my soul. However, there was a contrast between being on the journey and being back home. When I was on the 50 at 50 journey, it was like catching this incredible wave. The feeling was exhilarating. I was in the moment. I wanted to ride it as far as it would take me, and I was hoping it would last forever. Maybe I thought that the 50 at 50 journey would immunize me from being pulled into the muck and noise of conventional day-to-day life. I think the lesson that was affirmed for me is that enlightenment is not a state you achieve, but a practice that must be nourished. I was less interested in finding an answer. I was more interested in just creating the awareness and acceptance of the whole messy thing called life. This first day on the road was a good day. I rode a little over 200 miles from Boca Raton to Sanford, Florida, outside of Orlando, to catch the auto train to Lorton, Virginia. It was an overnight train that would save me about 800 miles of straight I-95 North riding through the rain and heat, both of which I had experienced this day. I was the only motorcycle today on the auto train, which they had announced. It was a cool experience and something new to have the bike on the train. It also gave me time to ease into this adventure, both mentally and physically. Late August in the Southeast didn't make for the most comfortable riding. I was happy to be making my way north a bit faster. A couple more days and the trip would bring me back to my beginning in Brooklyn. I was looking forward to moving through that experience and the range of emotions that I was sure would surface. So with a cold, hoppy IPA in hand and a smile on my face, I enjoyed my evening on the train. Tomorrow I would ride through Washington, D.C. and head to the Jersey Shore. I had missed being on the bike and being on the road. Jeanette was going to meet me in Halifax, Nova Scotia next week, and that would mark a new adventure. For now, the adventure continued, and I was already feeling lighter, or was it the beer? I woke up pretty early today, around 5 a.m. The train was pulling in early, so it was a good thing to be up and having breakfast at the crack of dawn. Disembarking from the train, everyone was waiting for their cars and I was searching out my motorcycle. The bike was towed off the train after about 45 minutes. I headed over to the unloading ramp and hopped on the bike while the attendant took off the tie-downs. I jumped on the bike and headed onto the freeway towards DC. I wanted to ride through Washington, D.C. and passed all the sites, the U.S. Capitol, the White House, and the Washington Monument. The traffic and the security made it hard to get close, especially by the White House. However, I was happy to ride through the Capitol and felt a sense of accomplishment. From Maryland to Delaware, across the Chesapeake Bay, and then to Lewis to catch the Cape May ferry across Delaware Bay to New Jersey, that was my plan. The ferry ride was a blast. I've taken ferries before with my car and once on a motorcycle trip in Europe, but never with my own bike. This was a first. Not a huge deal, but cool nonetheless. Less than 2 hours later, I was in New Jersey riding the Jersey Shore, feeling a sense of having arrived, and again battling the crazy heat wave in my motorcycle gear. I had fun on the bike riding around, not so much fun sweating, and then decided to head to the Garden State Parkway in North. A lot of stuff happened today. I was going to sleep well tonight. Tomorrow I would go back to the beginning to visit where I grew up in Brooklyn, and I was sure also to battle the heat wave in the Northeast. From New Jersey, over the Outer Bridge crossing to Staten Island, and then over the Verrazano Bridge to Brooklyn, I was back at the beginning, my beginning. I've been back to Brooklyn a few times over the decades, but that ended in the late 90s when most of my family moved. I was on my motorcycle, on the Belt Parkway, heading to my old neighborhood. A big smile was hidden in my helmet. I was excited to see everything that had changed and to trigger the memories and feelings from my youth. I'd moved away from Brooklyn 32 years ago when I was 18 years old. Now returning at the age of 50 on my motorcycle. It was definitely a great way to punctuate, underline, and add an exclamation mark to the story of my life. There was nothing heroic about arriving by motorcycle, but for me, it was a grand adventure and had the effect of energizing my soul. I did a brief motorcycle tour through Brighton Beach, Coney Island, and Sheepshead Bay, finding glimpses of the familiar and encountering the new and unknown. Zooming through traffic on Brighton Beach Avenue, I made my way to Coney Island, the Cyclone, and Nathan's famous hot dogs. I was anxious to walk to the beach in Brighton, but first a slice of pizza at Rocco's. Walking through the park and seeing my apartment building in the distance brought back a lot of great memories, too many to recount, but the place, the people, and that era were special. It was now time to get some sand between my toes. It was magical to be in the ocean on Brighton Beach. I could see Coney Island, the parachute jump, and the Wonder Wheel in the distance. The jetty of rocks marked each bay, and the loads of people sprawled out in the sand. I lost track of the time during the walk. It was a nice feeling to retrace my footsteps from when I was a wild boy on the streets of Brooklyn. I felt joyful and grateful. Grateful for being here this day and grateful for my personal history that started in Brighton Beach in 1968. Accepting my personal history is about embracing all that I have experienced in my life, my strengths and my flaws, and accepting myself for the soul that I am, with respect and gratitude for the life I've lived and will live. I was back at the beginning, and that was propelling me forward on this continuing adventure. My back to the beginning theme was experienced, and now it was time to focus on Atlantic Canada. I was to make my way north, but first I needed a pair of new motorcycle tires. I headed north from New York, leaving Brooklyn, driving through Queens, across the Whitestone Bridge, into the Bronx, and crossing into Connecticut. A couple of hours in Brookfield, Connecticut, getting new tires installed, gave me the time to chill and contemplate the rest of the day. The thought of passing through cities and the beginning of Labor Day weekend traffic by the coast, as well as a heat wave that had 24 hours of steam left, gave me pause. I enlisted the help of the shop for route suggestions. Everyone was super helpful and gave a unanimous simultaneous response: stay away from the coast and continue north toward the Green Mountains of Vermont. I left the shop happy to have new rubber on the road. I was most happy about rolling hills, twisties, and a drop in temperature of 25 degrees compared to yesterday. Heading north on Route 7 immediately paid dividends. Riding through the green of Connecticut and passing towns with no sign of an interstate was simply brilliant. I was having a blast. These were great motorcycle roads, and I was in the flow. I soon found myself riding through the Berkshires of Massachusetts. Mountains, villages, towns, and super fun riding. Crossing the state border into Vermont, I was riding through the Green Mountain National Forest. The temperatures continued to fall and the riding continued to be spectacular, but it was late and had been a long day. Wilmington, Vermont was approaching and seemed like a good choice. Pulling into Wilmington, I selected the first inn I saw. I took a stroll in town, 2 blocks, followed by a nice dinner and a cold IPA. What more could I ask for? Beautiful scenery and riding this afternoon. Before I took off on the bike, I walked across the street to the diner. It was an easy call. Coffee as usual, and something that would require a Vermont maple syrup. French toast, maple syrup, plenty of coffee, and I was ready to ride. Waking up to a cool 58 degrees was a welcome change from the previous days. The sky was overcast, but I knew it was going to be great riding condition. I packed up the bike and headed north on Route 100, hugging the Green Mountain National Forest. The roads were all mine. The ride was spirited and at the same time peaceful. Covered bridges, rolling hills, streams, creeks, and the Green Mountains. I turned east and then north, and I was in New Hampshire, on my way to the Kangamangas Highway in the White Mountains National Forest. The Kangamangas Highway was a blast, and I was pushing the bike. I was close to Mount Washington Auto Road and Mount Washington, which is the highest point in the northeastern part of the United States, something like 6,200 feet. I couldn't resist. I would have plenty of time to make it to Portland, Maine and the ferry tomorrow. I could do the auto road and stay around there. Mount Washington Auto Road was plugged into the GPS, and I was quite chuffed, as the Brits say. It was 8 miles or so to the summit, but it took a bit of time to get there. Incredibly steep roads, some gravel, and a few hairpins, as well as lots of slow-moving cars. The smell of burning brakes permeated the air. I suspect many cars would need new brake pads, radiator fluid, and a transmission service after doing this trip. At the top, I parked the bike and headed for a walk to take some pictures. I avoided the long line at the summit where everyone was taking their turn. After pausing to take in the beauty and enjoying the expansive views, I jumped on the bike. My excitement on the ride up was only rivaled by the ride down. It was fun spiraling around the mountain roads, stopping briefly for the moose on the road, but then I was on a southerly course in search of lodging. Wildcat Inn and Tavern was an easy decision. It was a small room at the right price. Yes, it was above the kitchen, but I didn't mind. Neil Young was playing on a speaker outside, kids were playing, and people were enjoying beer and wine on the grass. I was in the right place at the right time. Serendipity had visited me again. Finding a table in the tavern, there was live music, and he had an eclectic playlist. From 50s classics to Jackson Browne, Tom Petty, Van Morrison, Neil Diamond, the Eagles, and on. The crowd loved it, sang along, and lots of old-timers got up to dance. It was a great celebration, and the locals were out. I retired for the night, having given in to dessert and another glass of wine, both of which made no sense, but I got caught up and didn't want the night to end. Like all good things, the time to call it a night did arrive. Today was an easy 2-hour ride to catch the ferry in Portland, Maine. The weather was great and I arrived with time to spare. Lining up were cars, motorcycles, and RVs waiting for the cat to arrive. The ferry is a big catamaran and supposedly makes the 5.5-hour crossing quite fast. I spoke with a few other motorcycle riders and exchanged stories of grandeur and adventure. Mostly everyone was very warm and friendly. The call came and motorcycles rode up onto the ship first. They packed us side by side and we had to strap the bikes down with very little clearance between them. I felt the pressure and rushed through it. On the ship, I settled in and changed out of my motorcycle gear. After spending a bit of time talking routes with a few other motorcycle travelers, I needed to feed my belly. I shoveled down a chicken pesto panini, chips, and a chocolate chip cookie. Feeling content or nauseous or both, I settled in for the crossing. There was a Celtic duo serenading the ship, and therefore it was time to sink into my chair, close my eyes, and dream. I was happy that I had a hotel about 5 minutes from the ferry, booked for the night. Tomorrow would be my first day traveling the southern coast of Nova Scotia in the direction of Halifax. What an adventure. Next stop, Atlantic Canada. Arriving went smoother than I expected. The crew had removed the tie-downs on all the motorcycles. Disembarking didn't take too long, and all the cars and motorcycles lined up to go through customs. It was a slow but a smooth process, and my hotel was literally 3 minutes from the port. I was elated and happy to be in Canada. Tomorrow I would be riding the coast in Nova Scotia, and it would mark the start of yet another new adventure.